Hi everyone! So for part 3 of this lab, we basically asked you to do something very similar to what we did in parts 1 and 2, but kind of ramping it up a little bit. And so I hope you can kind of get a sense of how we're asking you to build on the things that you did successfully previously in order to do new things later. So this time we're going to ask the user for their height in inches and use a float and then convert that to centimeters and display the results. So this is very similar to asking them for the year and then, doing some subtraction to calculate how old they'll be this year. But the math is a little bit different and we're using floats instead of ins. So a few adjustments have to be made. But very similar to how we started the last one, right? First we asked for their birth year. Here we're going to ask for their height. And I'm just going to actually call this height in inches so that it's very clear which one we're dealing with. And this is going to be another input, and with the question, what is your height in inches? And close off those parentheses there. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. Right, we started off with that. Now, actually, I'm going to change this to height in, just because I'm going to run out of space on this, this screen. So, height in is short for height inches, and I've already told you we're going to use a float, and you saw last time that if you want an integer, you need to convert it. So I'm just going to go ahead and type that in to begin with. So we're going to type float, and then wrap all of that in parentheses. I'm not going to, walk you through the error message again. So we need to convert that to centimeters. So 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters, more or less. I'm rounding off a little bit. So basically, we're just going to do some math. So last time we did subtraction, this time we're going to do multiplication. So we're going to multiply height inches times 2.54. But we can't just do that, right? Because we can, that'll run, but we need to save that information in another variable. So I'm going to call this one height cm and set it equal to height inches times 2.54. You can put spaces around the multiplication thing. It makes it a little bit easier to read. It's not required. So I'm just going to save it and run it now and just make sure that there's no error messages. And in fact there isn't. It asks me for my height. I type it, nothing happens because again I have no print statements yet. So I'm going to put in a print statement, print height cm, just to make sure that that's working. Save it, run it, height in inches, 137.16. So one thing that's really important right here is that you want to make sure that that makes sense, right? You want to make sure that you did the math correctly. So does it make sense that 54 times about 2.5 is going to be 137.16? And yes, it does, because 54 times 2 is 108, and then plus another half. Yeah, that all checks out. So, okay. So this is the kind of check that the computer can never do for you. It's the common sense, human reasoning. Does this answer make sense for the problem I am trying to solve? Check. So if you accidentally, divided the height in inches by 2.54, you got a very, very different result, and it appears that you are really quite short. So yeah, so that's the kind of check that you can only do as a human. Alright, so we were printing that, and then we want to add a little, some strings around it. And we've already seen that if you want to print strings and numbers together, you have to convert the number to a string. And then I'm just going to say, I didn't specify that you had to say something else here, but just for practice, I'm going to put it in. So I'll put in space is your height in centimeters. So save it, run it, and there we go. So that shows the output. with the actual solution, so you can see the whole thing there. And that's really all we needed to do for this one. So, you know, very similar to what we did before, but again, a little bit different. So you can kind of hopefully see how you would take the thing that you did and then do one more step with it, do something a little bit different. Alright, so that's all for straight Python, and we're going to do some stuff with turtles next. So I hope that proves interesting, and I'll see you for part 4.